Good evening and welcome to Sweet and Sour Soccer with me, James, and
Me, Scott.
this is actually our first video, so do go easy on us if it's not 100%. But today, what we're going to be talking about is really what we believe's gone wrong for Wolves so far this season. We're going to be looking at injuries, tactics. First of all, we are going to focus on transfers. We've just finished the January transfer window. Obviously, the summer window had quite a bit going on. So, Scott, really, this season's been a funny one for Wolves fans. Going back to the start of the window, do you think there were any telltale signs that could have predicted this? Bearing in mind the two previous seasons we had, what do you think has really happened?
Well, I think with this, you've got to break it down into two different subjects in terms of looking at what went out and what came into the club as well. I mean, the first one that was a major thing that I think we should look at is the fact that we started the season with only two fit strikers. There was strikers in the under 23s, but we haven't used them. And some of them have been performing well as well. So technically we started this season with two fit strikers, of which, we lost Raul, which meant we were left with a young Fabio Silva, who personally I feel really sorry for him. He's had to play as a backup. He was meant to be a backup to Raul, which I thought was a big enough task at just turned 18 years old. I believe his birthday was actually in July. So he had literally just turned 18 when the season started, coming into a new country, not got that many games under him either beforehand with Porto. I think as well, just the two professional goals to his name, to then come into a big club like Wolves and have to play even second fiddle, really was a big ask of him.
He hasn't been second fiddle really as this season. That's the problem. He's, as you say, he's barely had any football in Portugal. And then I think for a 17, 18-year-old to be playing week in, week out in the Premier League, it's just, you go back to the Premier League era, there's only a few names that jump out, the likes of Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney that did it. So, we can't be too hard on him.
Yeah, of course.
Some fans have been, that's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't know how much they actually see the comments online, but if he has, I'm sure that's not helped him.
Nuno addressed it this week, didn't he? Saying that he's seen some comments and people are, welcome to their opinion. So they do see it. They don't live in this bubble. They are human.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's only natural to look. I mean, and when the injury happened to Raul, it meant he didn't just have to step up as the number 2 striker. He had to become the main outlet, which just meant the task asked of him was even bigger. It was even more pressure on him. And, sometimes we don't think about the other things, such as even if I think he can speak English, but it won't have been the language that he commonly used. And, he's had to settle in to a new country in COVID times as well. I'm sure those things have also infected his performance in general and just settling into the club. I think we've probably seen in the last few weeks that what we have seen of him, he's starting to look even already a better player. But I think for him to have the pressure on him to start as the main striker this year was just way too much to ask for him. And of course, when you've only got 2 fit strikers and your main striker goes and it is left to a young striker, I mean, he's just not been able to fill the goals that Raul would usually give us.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking as well. I think as well as Fabio struggling coming into a team that has basically changed so much, I think it would have been an easier transition had he come in last season, because we were just riding on the back of 7th. The team were playing well generally. I think it would have slid in a lot easier to come into a team that isn't playing well and then asking to do a role of someone who is probably should be a top 6 team in Jimenez. He should be starting for a top 6 team. So, it's not like he's filling the boots of someone fighting relegation. And because of the expectations of the last 2 years, you'd expect us to be fighting around about that sixth, seventh, eighth mark. So, it's even more pressure for him. One thing I wanted to touch on with the transfers is if you look back at the play, this is one of the reasons I believe we've struggled this season. If you go back as to how we've played over the past 2 years, it's heavily influenced by wing backs, wing play in general.
Yes.
You look at the players both in and out that we've seen. You've got Jota wing forward. Obviously, he's gone to Liverpool for a big fee. We couldn't really turn that down. Costa, he's gone to Leeds. Another wing forward. Matt Doherty, wing back. Yes, he hasn't had a great season. Some people will still be saying, it's great that we got rid of him, but it is another wide player that we've let go. Vinagre is another one. Burr, and there's actually more. I haven't even listed all of them. You even go down to players like Graham. We've let go about 7 wide players. We've also brought in about 6 or 7 wide players. Semedo, Hover, Markal. So, am I pronouncing that right? Yeah, Markal. So, our play over the last 2 years has been wide play, whether it's wing forwards or wing backs, and we've seen 7 or 8 changes in that area alone. So
yeah, definitely. One thing to touch on that as well is when we lost Doherty and when we lost Jota. Doherty last season in the Premier League, 4 goals, 4 assists. Probably doesn't credit him as much about how good he was going forward. I mean, he would be, you'd often see him actually in the box, not just in and around it. You'd actually see him in the box, making moves.
Always, he's coming in the back post. There's countless goals where Doherty would come in the back post. He did have a mistake in him, yes. Obviously, the famous one towards the end of last season that stopped us really pushing up to 6 was against Burnley, that handball.
Yeah.
He did have that in him, but he didn't. His influence going forward was bigger than the mistakes he made at the back. He wasn't the best defender in the world, but he was good enough.
And definitely, I think the reason we probably saw him go was, as we've seen, Nuno did try and is still trying to implement a back 4. So maybe in a back 4, Doherty, probably not for me, no. But
no, I do agree. I don't. That could be one of the reasons why Nuno sold him. He probably thought he wanted to use this year as a springboard to introduce and implement that back 4.
Yeah.
In which case, obviously, Doherty, I don't think Doherty would be able to hold that role. He needs that inside right back to just cover him, because the reason why he gets so many assists and goals every season is because he is up there. Whereas someone like Semedo or Hoover, they do have a little bit more of a defensive mindset.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, another thing to touch on, you spoke about Jota again, 7 goals. I think it was 7 goals, 1 assist last year. I mean, he didn't have a great season last year, but having said that, when you actually look at the playing stats, 7 goals and 1 assist in the Premier League, by the way. I know in the Europa, obviously, he had that one where he scored 4 goals in 1 game, but when we're focusing on the Premier League, because that's the main competition that we're in this year, obviously, we haven't got European football. That's 7 goals, 1 assist. Even though he didn't have his best year, that's still a big gap to replace. And if you're looking at Doc and Jota combined, that's 11 goals, 5 assists, I believe, if you add them 2 together. That you've got to replace, and as you say,
were you surprised that we didn't replace such a key player? As you say, that was a bad season for him, but he's still notching up 15, 16 goals in all competitions. That's a big gap to fill. Are you surprised that I was going to say we focused on the defence, but really we didn't. Are you surprised that we didn't? Yes, we brought in Fabio for 30 million, but that is a player for 2 or 3 years' time, and obviously, hopefully, another 10 years. Are you surprised we didn't get a ready-made player? Someone like maybe a Sarr who went down with Watford could have got him, put in a bid for Zaha?
Yes, definitely. I think Sarr from Watford would have been a great addition. Um, I guess as well, looking at the Jota scenario, the one thing that's concerning is it has been noted that Fosun will run this like a business, and I think in general that's going to be a great thing for us. It means we won't come into financial trouble. We won't have an issue, maybe like how we seen Everton overspending, not really thinking through transfers. But I don't
Yeah.
think Diogo was one where we perhaps said at the start of the season we want to get rid of him. I think it didn't come late on, but it wasn't at the start of the transfer window, put it that way. And from what we heard, it was something that a bid came in. Fosun considered it with Nuno, and they thought it was a good amount. I think it also helped us to get Hoover in, who I think will be again another great player for the future, but not for now. But
Yeah.
and I think that has a massive impact where you're kind of thinking, well, did they actually plan for this player to go? And when Jota obviously did go, that's probably why we didn't see someone come in.
What do you think of the lack of centre backs in the summer? Me personally, and obviously we have a football group that we talk about everyday footballers, 12, 15 of us. I've been saying that we've needed a centre back since going into the Prem, and 2.5 years down the line, here we are. We still don't have any reinforcements at centre back. If anything, all we're doing is turning central midfielders, i.e., Seist and Donker, into centre backs now. So,
Yeah,
are you
agreed.
surprised by that? Do you think we're going to? I really thought we would rectify that in the January transfer window. The fact we didn't, it's kind of really starting to worry me now.
Yeah, definitely. I think touching on maybe the January transfer window, we didn't see much business being done. I think maybe that's because of COVID, the uncertainty with that. I think you had the new EU rules, that Brexit rules that have come in as well, making it harder to permanently sign players. Um, yeah, I mean, looking at the club, maybe, and the idea that again we're going to a back four, maybe Nuno thought we we had enough. But I mean, I suppose I'd ask you actually whether any of the centre backs, in your opinion, can play in a back four from what you've seen so far?
I do believe Bowley can. I do believe he can. I think he needs a fast centre back with him. Someone like an Swaby at Man United. I think he'd be a good partner for him. I don't think Cody and Bowley works in a back four. Kilman potentially, but I don't believe Kilman and Bowley would work in a back four. I'm not going to really talk about Seist and Dendoncker because I don't believe they should be in a back four anyway. So to answer your question, no. The centre back part is what I believe is holding us back moving forward, taking that next step into consistent European football, if that is something that we genuinely believe we can do. I know we've overachieved the last 2 years and there are a lot of bigger clubs in the league, but we want to try and push high as we can. I do believe the centre back area needs addressing. I just don't see how we're going to push forward with Cody, Bowley, and Kilman as our three main centre backs. It's just, especially in back four, absolutely not.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd agree. I think Bolly could possibly play in the back four, but probably needs a better partner with him. I think just turned 30 as well. How many more years? I suppose for a centre back, you might still get another 2-3 years out of him, so it's not an immediate worry. The hard one with Connor Cody is maybe not. It's a hard one because I feel like he might not be suited to a back four, but then the problem is Nuno's then got to find a new leader. I mean, it's addressed on every time we play on Sky or just in the media in general. They love to talk about how vocal Connor Cody is, how you can hear him on the pitch, and whether losing that leader on the pitch could that affect us in another way. In that I don't really see another leader. Feel maybe, I don't know, Neves could step up into that role, but to be honest, I'm not really sure. I don't see another leader on the pitch.
From what's come out this week of Neves missing his kid's birth, that shows all the signs of a leader.
Yes, yeah, agreed.
It's quite common knowledge. I'm not Neves' biggest fan, but he has played well the last couple of games, I'll admit. And Neves, again, how many caps does he have for Portugal? He captained Porto, so he could make that next step. The problem, I believe, and you touched on it, is when you lose Cody, you don't just lose a centre back; you've lost a captain. So you're effectively trying to replace two parts of the team. You're trying to find a good centre back who's just got his first England cap. Everyone was talking about him 3 or 4 months ago. Well, really pre-Raul's injury, when we were on form, we were 6th in the league, I think, after 10 games, were we? Or 9 games?
Yes, we were. Yeah. Started really well.
Really well. Cody just played for England. He just scored his first goal for England. I know Jamie Carragher's a big fan of him anyway because he remembers him being at Liverpool. There was talk of Liverpool coming back for him in the summer, in the January window after Virgil van Dijk's injury. So I've got no doubt that Cody can find that form again. He's come under a lot of scrutiny from Wolves fans that I've seen. People's, for the first time ever, really starting to question his position in the team. Obviously, Nuno made it for the first time as well after what happened against the Albion, bringing him off. So I wouldn't rush to replace Cody because I think you lose a lot from us if you do that.
Definitely.
And I don't think you find a centre back as good as Cody for less than 20-25 million.
So I guess what you're saying is next year it'll depend how much we have to spend with the pandemic of whether we can really address the centre back issues.
We don't expect to have a war chest at Wolves, and I know other fans of other clubs like to throw these accusations out that we spent our way to the Championship title and spent our way to the Europa League. We have one of the lowest net spends in the league.
Yeah,
It's just a comment made by people that don't know what they're talking about. But if you offered me now a top centre back, just one top centre back over 2 or 3 other players, maybe another winger, a central midfielder, or even another striker, I'd take that centre back because I really do believe if we had another top centre back, we would easily have another 6 or 7 points. And in this league this season, another 6 or 7 points probably puts us 8th. So
I suppose moving on, you touched on the fact there about the Raul injury and how before the Raul injury happened, we're probably around about 8th position, we said. So moving on, again, is that another factor of why we've not done well this season? I mean, obviously we've seen the last couple of seasons we've been really lucky with injuries, and perhaps this year it's gone the other way. Maybe that's just due to players not having a pre-season. I mean, amongst the Premier League in general, you've seen injuries go up and be much more this season than they would typically be. But how much do you feel that's been a factor of why Wolves haven't been as good as perhaps we have been other seasons?
I mean, it doesn't take a genius to work out that Raul's injury is. I mean, you'd probably, if there was one, he's the worst player that any Wolves fan would choose to have an injury that potentially rules him out for the rest of the season, including Cody, including Neves, including Patricio, I'd probably say as well. He's the last player that we would have wanted to get an injury of this nature. I think. What's your prediction for this year? What would you accept? Let's hypothetically say Raul doesn't come back into competitive matches until say April. What would you expect?
I think we've got enough to stay up now. I think just because of the points title is going to be that low. What would I accept, to be honest, this year if we stay up, and maybe if we can just finish the season on a good streak and take that into the next, then I'd be quite happy with that. Let's just in fact, the one thing I'd like to see happen is if Nuno wants to go to a back 4 and that's his long-term plan, let's just focus on getting ourselves safe, and then after that, maybe we should just play the back 4 every game, use the rest of the season to get the squad used to it so we can go into a better run next year. I think looking at the injuries, one point I would make as well is we signed Marcel for £5 million. You know, I think ideally he was going to be the cover for Johnny, and if you look at the fact we would have had Marcel and Semedo as our left and right back, and I'll say left and right back, maybe Nuno would have stuck with that back four more. I think the fact he's had to play a young Ain't Nori, we've seen Hoover come in, who again I think are going to be great players for the future. I think both have
Yeah.
a lot of potential, but I think when you look at if we had Marcel fit, he's been a bit of a, let's be honest, a bit of a sick note at the moment, in whether
Yeah.
that's just, you know, he does pick up injuries, or whether it's just the fact that he's just had an unlucky
But remember,
season.
he's not 24, is he, Markel? Is he
No,
31?
yeah, 31 or 32. So, but maybe that was the plan, just a cheap signing who was still, from what I've seen of him, I thought he's been a very solid player, a solid 6.5, 7 out of 10 every game. Would then we have seen him stick with the back four? Possibly.
Yeah, we could well have. What worries me is I do agree with what you said. I do believe that if we can, you've got to say we're safe. Something drastic would have to happen for us to go down. We'd have to lose almost every game, because I can't see Fulham, West Brom, Sheffield United. If it is any of those three that do stay up, I can't see them getting even 30 points. Never mind 32 or 33. I think if we get another win, definitely 2 more wins, I think we're safe. Moving forward for the rest of the season, I'd like to see Nuno, if he is going to go for a 4, it'd be interesting to see how he plays the midfield. Will he go for a 4-4-2 and keep his 2 central midfielders, which he seems to favour no matter what position he plays, or will he play the 3 midfield? And if he does, who? Will he bring
I think
Stewie? Will he play Vince?
I think if he goes for it, we'll probably see a 4-2, 4-2-3-1 most likely, with Podence as that cam role that also tracks back to help the defence. Think one thing as well that, you know, injuries probably hasn't helped with is also when you look at Wolves over the last 2 seasons. You know, that I think there was a period last season when we went, maybe was it about 11 games, might have even been longer, where it was the same team every week.
Didn't we break the record? I think we broke the record, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was the first 10 games of the
was
season.
it the 10? Yeah.
Very first 10 games of the season, there wasn't a change.
Yeah, and when you look at that this season, I don't think we've probably gone 2 without changing the team, much of which has been forced on us because of injuries.
Raul. Yeah, yeah. I think it's because of Raul's injury is such a big blow to us that after Raul was injured and we stopped scoring goals, stopped firing, Nuno, it seemed almost every game was changing, whether it be Adama on the left, Adama on the right, Adama not at all, Podence and Neto either side. Podence then gets injured. You know, do we try and go? I think he went 2 up top at one point, didn't he?
Yes, he did try that. Yeah, yeah.
Podence. So I think it would be, and obviously it's not a secret that there's a lot of fans at the moment that are on Nuno's back. I think if Nuno's worst season with us forever, for however long he is with the club, is a finish anywhere between 9th and 14th with an injury to our best player, I don't think you can have a go at Nuno for that.
No, definitely not. One of the points you touched on earlier was, you know, you've said, and I'll join you on this, and especially this season, is we've both been critical of Ruben Neves.
Yeah, that's probably a video for another day, to be honest.
Yeah, which you know, I'll put my hands up and say I've only just found out literally the other day that, you know, a big reason maybe why he hasn't been at his best with what's been happening. Obviously his wife's had to a partner has had to give birth back in Portugal with him not being there. But touching on the football aspect of this, and looking at the, the 4-2-3-1 formation we might play, is Neves more suited in, when we do play that formation, rather than a five? Or you just, you're not agreeing with
No,
that?
no. Finish what you're going to say. Finish what you're
Me personally, when I see when we play five at the back, so we go for the five, and then the two in midfield, and then the three. I don't think he plays as well as when we go four at the back, and then we've got that 4-2-3-1 formation. I think having Podence as part of the midfield, almost, for me, it allows Neves to do what he does best, getting the ball forward, breaking up play. As a two, I feel he almost doesn't have the space he needs, and in midfield, they often get overrun in midfield as a set two, and I think that might, in my opinion, be why we've not seen the best of Neves this season as well. But I have a feeling you've got a different take on it.
Listen, Neves could be just having a bad bit of form. I don't think he's played well for a year, to be honest. He's had good flashes. I've seen comments that he had a great game yesterday. We beat a side 2-1 that had 9 men. I don't think any of our players yesterday had a great game.
No.
What minute did Leno get sent off yesterday? When did they go down to 9?
It's about 10 minutes, just over 10 to go, I believe.
Yeah, we created almost nothing after that. Almost nothing with 9 men. Even for 10 men for most of, all of the second half, they had 9 men for 35 minutes, half an hour until Leno got sent off. We didn't create much, to be honest. We should have won that game 3 or 4-1.
I'd probably say, though, maybe, we could see that Arsenal weren't attacking us at the time, and we felt in control at 2-1, and it was more of a let's just get over the line with that performance.
We had a lot of possession, and we were just passing it around. Sometimes it looked like just for fun, because we kind of knew there's no way we could lose this game. But obviously, they almost scored in the 94th minute through Aubameyang when Bellerin got to the byline.
Yeah. I think a good block, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a block by, I think, Bowley, and then again by Donks. I think then Donker got another block.
Yeah, I think it was.
But if that goes in, it's meltdown. It's meltdown.
I'd agree.
Again. Absolutely.
I wouldn't even be suggesting that we're just holding off. I'd be absolutely fuming. So I completely agree with that.
The second half performance was awful yesterday.
I mean, kind of linking this back into the transfer window a little, we touched on the fact that Doherty went.
Yeah.
Obviously, we lost Johnny. I kind of look at Johnny and I think he can play in a 4 and a 5. He weren't.
Johnny is the Messiah. He's everyone's player. Johnny. God, he was no team in the history of football has ever missed a left back as much as Brazil didn't need Roberto Carlos as much as we need Johnny.
The thing is with Johnny, although he hadn't got the same. I feel like you didn't see him get into the box as much as the Doc, but he almost played a different role going forward. He helped to link up play with the midfield, also to play the ball out wide, whether that at the time would have been last season, whether that would have been Jota or Neto or Podence, whoever it was on that left-hand side at the time. He helped to link well there. I guess the issue that we spoke about is obviously when you take away 2 creative fullbacks and you don't replace them with those that are going to get forward and get into the box. You're looking at, even if we're playing a 2-man midfield, you're looking at that 2-man midfield to contribute to goals, because otherwise then you've only got, especially if you're playing the 5, you're then left with 3 players that can score the goals, the 2 wingers, and which we spoke about that being left to a young Fabio Silva, Adama, who's not really noticeably a goal scorer. And the thing is, look at Neves and Moutinho. I haven't done the maths, but either way, they've not got a great goal scoring record between them. I mean, it was spoke about
Moutinho's first ever goal at Molineux yesterday.
Yes, yeah.
In 3 years.
I believe he's over
24 game season in the Championship.
I believe his other two were free kicks as well. I think he scored 3 with us. I think there was the one at Palace and the one at Bournemouth. But you know, you take away Neves' free kicks and penalties as well, and you know, you're then looking at how many goals and assists have these guys got when it's open play. And the truth is, yeah.
That's the thing. I was going to say, if you look at the last 2 years of being in the Prem, I wouldn't go far back enough to the Championship, because that was a completely different team. That was Cavallero and Costa, and a lot's changed since then. But if you go back to the last 2 years of being in the Prem, you looked at the Wolves lineup that we knew. You could almost predict the Wolves lineup every week. Bar one change if we were lucky. A goal could have come from Jota. It could have come from Raul. It could have come from Adama. If it wasn't, it was Costa. You know, there were so many players that could get a goal. Now you're looking at it and you're thinking, we don't expect Fabio to score. I think he's done all right, but if he does grab a goal like he did against the Albion, pandemonium. Other than Neto and Podence, we have nothing.
No,
if Neto or Podence don't seem to score, like you said, from open play at least, we're not talking about set pieces, of which we are some of the worst set piece takers in the league, if not the worst, in my opinion. From open play, we've only got 2 players that can score. And with Podence being injured previously, it really was left down to Neto.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Neto has proved how good he is already and how good he's going to be this season. I've said it before. I think, you know, he's probably going to go to a Barca or Madrid. I think it will get to the stage where we just, even if we keep growing as a club, I don't believe we'll be able to keep him down the line. Signed a 5-year deal, so let's hope we get a big fee when that does come. And I think we can still get another 2-3 years out of him. I just think eventually he's just going to go to one of those big Spanish
he's
teams.
Far too good for us. Yeah, he's far too good for us. I don't think he'll leave in the summer unless a big bid came from somewhere. But I don't see any team. I can't think of what team would be willing to pay that. I can't see Juventus coming in from in the summer because they're trying to get rid of Ronaldo unless they manage to do that. Obviously, Barcelona are struggling. Real Madrid, I mean, I guess they could, but I think they're trying to entice Neymar, aren't they? So that might.
Okay, yeah.
I can't imagine they'd go from Neymar to Neto. They'd probably look at a bigger player like Pogba or someone like that. He could go to a team in the Premier League, to be honest.
I think one thing we might be Sorry, I was going to say one thing we might be lucky about this season is just that I don't think the funds are going to be there even for the big clubs with COVID.
No. This finishing where we do in the league this season, let's say we do finish bottom half, let's say we finish 12, 14, something like that. That could almost mask some of our players. I.e., would a Real Madrid or, you know, an Inter Milan want to come in for someone who's in the, you know, 2 or 3 places above the relegation zone? I think if someone did come in for Neto, I think they'd have to pay. Well, he signed a 5-year deal, didn't he, recently?
Yeah, 5 years. So
5-year deal.
We've protected
How
ourselves.
old is he? I think he turned 20. Not that long ago.
20, isn't he? Yeah.
So you're going to pay 80 million, surely. I know that might sound stupid, just, you know, but that's realistic.
For his potential, I think nothing under 60. But I mean, going back to the question that we asked, what has gone wrong for Wolves this season? Is there anything else, you know, that you see as a major factor of what's, you know, been a major cause for us not doing as well as what we've seen in other seasons?
Whether I'm being biased or not, although I have heard a lot of other fans who have been to the Molineux say the South Bank does make some noise for a stand as small as that. I do think that does have an issue. I know every fan of every club will say that, but I do think that would have had an issue. Even just some of those games where we've missed Raul, where we could have just, you know, hung on for that draw or maybe nicked a winner, something like that. I do think the fans would have made a difference for us, whether that was, even if it's only 2 or 3 points this season, an extra 3 points on top of our win last night puts us probably close to the top half. So,
Yeah,
and if,
yeah,
let's be honest, if we were 10th right now, would there be this much, pandemonium? There wouldn't be as many fans calling for Nuno's head if we were in the top half at the moment. The league's funny this year. You can win 2 games, you win back to back, or, get 7 points out of 9, and you go from 14th to 9th. So I don't think Nuno's situation probably would have helped. We know he's a strong character, but he's had some struggles. Obviously, not being able to see his family, that must have taken a toll as well. I just think it's been a funny season, but I'm not really too bothered. And I've been one of those people that have said, if Nuno finished 17th this season or 16th, kept us in the league, I'd still let him go on in the summer for what he's done for the club. If we were 19th come March, yeah, maybe you got to get rid of him. But you can't get rid of someone who has brought us the best football in 40 years because we're 14th in the Premier League. Come on. Do you know what Nuno's biggest problem will be? His downfall will be his own success, because he took us to the Europa League quarter-final. He took us to almost, knocking out the winners, well, who actually went on to win the tournament. So, if Nuno had finished 15th and 13th the previous 2 seasons, there wouldn't be a single Wolves fan moaning now.
No, definitely, I agree with that. As you said, fans probably have had a bit of an effect on our performances this year. Sometimes we have looked, and I think every team's looked a bit, but when you look at the style of football we've played in the last 2 years, it's been that fast, quick flowing counter-attack football, and you wonder, especially at home, how much the fans, will the pace of the game on, help them play that quick counter-attacking football. As well, you do wonder about the new players. We spoke about the fact that I think it would be naive to say they don't see comments online. I think
definitely.
a lot, and it's a shame. It's a shame in a way, because I feel like there's a lot more negative comments online in what you would actually see on a match day, in terms of, I wonder what these new players actually think of our fan group and what they're expecting when, we do actually return to the stadium. I hope they are, aware that this small proportion online that will just go in on them. It'll be a totally different story when they see the crowd, but who knows, maybe just having the crowd feeling that, like, they've got that good fan base behind them. Maybe that would have helped the new people, players like Semedo, settle in a little quicker. I think, he had a shaky start. I think he's not perfect by any means, but he's starting to improve a little. You're starting to see, I think you're starting to see small signs of improvement.
Yes. No.
No.
I'll be honest. I promised myself when I started doing these videos that I'm not going to just say stuff just to sound the. No. I think all Semedo is doing now is showing a little bit of what a £30 million Barcelona player should be doing anyway, because he's been so bad most of the season. All he's doing now is improving from the shit he's been. So what are we meant to commend everyone that has 2 or 3 good games after being shit for 16? No, I'm sorry, but Semedo's got a lot of work to do. He hasn't been the worst player in this squad over the past 2 months through the bad run, but if I'm spending £30 million, or I think it's 27 million plus add-ons, on a Barcelona right back who has played with some of the best players to ever live, I expect a mentality of better. That's better. Don't get me wrong, he might have a good mentality, but he hasn't shown on the pitch. I expected more from him. And I do think you can bring in the price tag. I know some people say you can't, but I do think you can. I do think from where he's come from, he should be improving a lot more.
Do you know what I think with the price tag? I'd agree. One player that I am going to criticise a little bit and I'm probably thankful this video will come out a couple of weeks time, because I think if I did throw shade of him after the wonder goal he'd just scored yesterday, I'm sure I'd have a lot of people having a go at me. But João Moutinho, absolute brilliant player.
Legend.
He's been absolutely fantastic for us, but his legs have gone a bit. I think, for me, he is someone that most of the time now we should be looking to use as a sub. Whether bringing in Vitina was supposed to be his replacement, I like the look of him.
Wouldn't say so because he was on loan.
Yeah, but loan with an option to buy, maybe we thought,
Yeah.
right, because I feel next season, if he does continue playing for us, Joe, I don't know if he will. He's only going to be a squad player because I feel he's just been a little bit off the pace this year. I think,
Yeah.
again, maybe he's someone that I've spoke about with Neves could benefit with having that extra person in midfield. I think especially when you have Neves and Vitinho, who are quite. Do you know what? I'd even say when we were doing really well last year, I've always had my suspicions and my feeling that Martinez and Neves as a combination doesn't work great because I think they're a bit too similar. There is the caveat that I feel like Neves is more of the long ball player, whereas Martinez is very good at playing those short 5-10 yard passes. But together, I don't think they offer enough in a midfield. And I think Giles' legs have gone a little bit. I think he's a bit off the pace this year. And I do wonder if, we're speaking about what's gone wrong for Wolves this season, but we're also addressing how do we fix it. And I think we do need to provide a solid replacement for Moutinho long term. Vitinha, from what I've seen of him, I've really liked him, but there's got to be a reason why we haven't seen Nuno playing much. I mean, the one thing I would say is when we signed Dendoncker, he didn't really start getting game time until about now, wasn't it? January. So hopefully we see a bit more of him the second half of the season. Would I be paying 20 million for him at the moment? I don't think so.
No, he didn't put a lot of confidence in me when he missed that chance yesterday in the 90th minute or so.
No.
I think what's happened is Raul's injury has masked so much for so many players potentially in this team, or maybe we just never knew just how good Raul actually is. But yeah, there's a few players now in the Wolves squad that are starting to be questions that you go 12 months ago, if you questioned any of them, it was almost as though you were anti-Wolves. You can't question Neves, you can't question Adama, you can't even begin to question Bowley or Cody or these types of players. And I think, because I have no doubt in my mind that should Raul have not got injured, we would be in the top half. We are, 3 or 4 points off maybe 10th, 11th, and we won 2 in our last 12 in the league. I think, is it 9 points on 30 we've got? I think that's the stat, give or take.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, give or take.
9 from 30. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But there's no doubt in my mind we'd have won, at least 7 points, maybe 8 more points, 2 or 3 wins out of those run of fixtures. So that puts us, 8th or 9th? And then again, no one's moaning. So I think Raul is just that big of a loss. When you talk about Moutinho, it's a hard one because he's a legend. He could be the best player that's ever played for the club, potentially, or at least since the 50s.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, as a caveat, so I don't get absolute pelters from this. I would say, the past 2 seasons, he probably has been the best player we've had.
Yeah.
He has been, but
I think he's got more in him left than just a squad player. I don't believe he's what Ryan Giggs was when he was coming towards the end of his Man United career. I do think he can start games, but I'd like to see him come off more in the 60th, 70th minute than a Podence or a Neves, or something like that. But I'd love to see him stay for another year or 2 as a player and then join the backroom stuff. That'd be the backroom stuff. That would be the ultimate goal. But speaking of that position, Morgan Gibbs-White, he's come back. What's your take?
It's a solution that we've needed. We've needed an attacking mid. Probably another reason, you know, tying it back to the question, what's gone wrong with Wolves this season? Not having that attacking midfielder. It's hard to know because we've barely used him. You know,
Don't they love him? They're begging for him back.
I feel. I mean, look, he didn't help himself with the recent Twitter activity. He's not helped himself in the past, but you know, I have to put this one on the fans and not on him. And people go, "Oh, well, he's the professional footballer. He should know how to act." You're talking about a 20-year-old kid here who is getting messages from people double his age, people that are double, like, you know, old enough to be his father, maybe even his grandfather, you
Yeah,
know, his granddad in certain instances. And, you know, at some point, I'm thinking at that age, if I had a bunch of people that were assuming my situation, assuming that, like, you know, just because I like to, I think it all started because he did stupidly like a couple of posts. Let's not put no blame on him. You know, he
yeah,
did, but I almost feel that that was kind of a build up and a stupid way of acting because, um, you know, I feel like the second he came back, Wolves fans were already on his back. I feel they should have showed him a bit more support. I mean, look, you know, these fans, they go on about banging on about how we've got to listen to Nuno and listen to what he has to say. Well, you know what? By him accepting the Gibbs back in, that was his way of going, right, you deserve a second chance. So maybe those fans that do say that, should have let him have his second chance. Um,
yeah. Do you
you
think
know,
he's the answer?
I almost feel that, you know, I don't think we'll see much of him now. I really don't. And
No.
I almost wish, you know, he'd stayed at Swansea because, one, I feel like he was enjoying his football again. And two, Swansea looked like they could go up this season. Who's to say that, like, you know, if he was there on loan, we couldn't have got a nice Watford Gibbs? You're probably looking at the age he's at. And if he had played how he was at Swansea, you're looking at a 20 mil fee, maybe, at
Quite
least about.
easily.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'd put it anywhere between 15 and 25 million. I'd probably said 20 as a mid-range.
But you might not even want to sell him. You might want to say, because we aren't going to give him 30 games a season. That's a problem. Um, if he did come up with Swansea, there's no reason why we couldn't maybe extended that loan for another year, to say, right, go and prove yourself. Can you go and play regular football? Can you help Swansea stay in the league? Can you go and get 5 goals and 5 assists, that kind of thing, for when Zhao maybe does move on, if he does.
I mean, would he have been a solution to this season, and would he helped us this season more?
Next season,
Possibly,
more.
possibly a couple of points, maybe. I don't think he was the answer for this season.
No.
You know, I mean, it's a question I'll ask you though. I'll bring towards. I'll speak about Arsenal when they were. I think that when they dropped down to, was it as low as 15th?
This season, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Arteta in that time went, right, these experienced players that I'm using, the likes of Willian, for example, they're not working. He started using Saka. He
Yeah.
started using Smith Rowe. He even started giving Eddie Nketiah time. Um, Look, we've seen Nuno obviously been forced to use Fabio Silva. He's been forced into using Otazawi. But do you think maybe if you'd given a few more of the kids a chance to prove themselves? I mean, Otazawi now, since our midfield's come back, he hasn't really seen much game time, and I don't know why, because I don't really think he did much wrong. And I have to say, I think
Played
after,
very well against Chelsea. Very well against Chelsea, I thought, when he came.
yeah, and one thing I would point out as well, you know, how is his confidence? I mean, he missed that chance at Brighton and hasn't seen a single minute since. I mean, I guess the question I
You
want to
think
ask,
Nuno would have said something about that, maybe in the background? He said,
yeah,
listen, I'm not dropping you because you missed that chance. We've got some hard games coming up, so on and so forth. We have to, we can't pretend that these players, when the final whistle blows, don't speak to each other and just go off home.
no, that is true. I
Nuno,
mean,
Nuno,
that,
Nuno's one thing. He is a man manager. None of the players have ever said anything negative towards him, and you can tell by the way they play for him.
I mean, slightly going away from the question I was going to ask, I'll go back to it. Do you reckon if we'd used some more of these kids, I think there was a couple of them doing well in the under 23s. I think pronunciations might be off here, I must admit. Shabani, who I
Yeah.
think has gone out on loan. There's the Canadian lad. I'm not even going to try to attempt to pronounce his name. Begins with a C. It could be Kobanu or something along those
Yes.
lines. Um, Again, if my pronunciation's off, I'm sorry, but I'm sure everyone watching knows the player I mean. Do you guys feel that, like, do you feel that, maybe if we'd gave those a chance to prove themselves, could they have gave us a couple more points, or do you reckon maybe not?
I don't see how they could have improved our situation. Um, I think it would have hurt Nuno's reputation more had he have done that. Because you're never going to win. He's never going to win because people have been moaning to. I remember at one point fans were um, asking to bring Morgan Gibbs White back. He came on for 20 minutes or so. I can't remember who it was against, but he must have given the ball away 7 or 8 times in that
Yeah,
20 minutes.
yeah,
And all the fans were like, what is he doing? Why does he think Morgan Gibbs White is the answer? Because there's a meme going around the fan base at the moment of, oh, the answers are within, the answers are within, because that's what Nuno's been saying a lot. So I think if he would have brought in more of the youngsters and we'd have probably have still had this bad run of form, he would have got slated. And I've seen some people arguing the case that they should have been given a go because, our more mature players or regular players aren't doing it either. So, he's going to lose either way. Personally, I don't see how bringing in 3 or 4 19-year-olds with no experience improves a position that we haven't been in for 3 or 4 years. We haven't been fighting or close to relegation in 3 or 4 years. So I don't see how bringing in those youngsters would have helped it.
I
I
mean,
think it would be a very good thing to do what you touched on earlier at the start of the show about if we do get to March and we've hit 34, 35 points, I think we go to a back four. And I think obviously Raul replaces Fabio straight away. That's a given if he's fit. And start to play the formation and the tactics, whether you do actually want to move into this possession-based model that he's tried to do previously, or what there is something that Nuno wants to do. That's obvious. He does want to change something. Maybe go for it from March to the end of the season. Drill it into the players. Then you've got a full summer to make a few recruits. Again, drill it in on the training ground, and then come back to the new season.
I mean, I think we've covered a lot on not just what's gone wrong for Wolves this season, but what kind of what we expect to happen for the rest of the season and what might help us make sure that this doesn't happen again. But going back to the original question, I suppose that we said we were going to talk about of what do we think was the main factor? What has gone wrong for this season? This season, why has things gone wrong for Wolves this season? If you had to pick up just one point to finish, what's your top one? What is it? And as our kind of closing.
Well, anyone who is actually watching this video, if you bothered to watch this video, you do it in the comments as well. Let us know what you think the biggest factor is. Me personally, it has to be Raul. I don't think you can look past that. I think if Raul's, even if we were playing as badly as we have been, you've just got to say in the last 12 games, Raul probably gets 5 or 6 goals, because that's what he's been doing for the last 2 years. So what would he be doing different? There's a few chances that Fabio's had that he's missed, and you think Raul probably would have put it away. There's a few crosses that Adama's put in and Neto that really hasn't reached anyone. So I think if Raul was in the team, even if he wasn't playing well, I think we get another 2 or 3 wins, which puts us in the top half. So I do have to say I think it is Raul.
Yeah, I think I'd second that. I'd go with the point of probably injuries have prevented us from having a great season. I think it's prevented Nuno from implementing the 4 at the back, which I think was clear he wanted to do. I think it's took away our goals with Raul. I think it's maybe left us a little bit weak in in midfield when we have had to go at a 5 at the back. So I think the whole biggest reason here is, okay, we lost the goals in Doc and Jota, but I think we replaced those because we had a new plan, and unfortunately, due to the factor of injuries, Nuno hasn't been able to implement those plans, and as you say, the biggest loss of the season. I think the biggest reason when this position is Raul, which, you know, when he comes back and when we get Johnny back, I think Nuno can hopefully start doing what he originally planned. And I don't think it is all doom and gloom. I think there's a lot for us to look forward to as Wolves fans. But yeah, I think that is pretty much the topic covered. So, you know, this is our first video to those watching. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, because that's going to be a massive...
It's about there somewhere.
Yeah, subscribe. Yeah. I would try and put...
If you don't, fuck off.
And we are also on social media, on all of them: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Wetton's flexing there. So yeah,
I don't know what to do now. You're talking, so I'm just gonna, let you.
You're just gonna do stuff in the background.
Yeah.
I'll let you have the final closing statement then.
Yeah, just one of my biggest regrets, really, and one of my biggest worries was, and I think this video has proved it, that really my co-presenter knows fuck all about football. So anyway, on that note, see you later.
See you later, guys. Bye. Bye.